Hey guys, it's Ben here from the Strength Factory, and today I'm going to be talking to you about sprint training and how to go about building a monstrous crank bending sprint. A decent sprint will make any mountain biker a better rider, whether you race or you're just a trail rider. For the trail rider, a powerful sprint gets you up that short, sharp climb. It lets you sprint into a trail or link up different sections, and it might even help you get that extra last minute speed to clear that jump. For the racers out there, it's kind of free time in a way, because if you imagine sprinting out the start gate, two riders putting in equal amounts of effort, but one of them's more powerful, you can have like a quarter, half a second or more by that first turn, just by being more powerful and sprinting harder. Now, when it comes to racing and in fact trail riding, as much as we like to focus on the biggest possible sprint, okay, it's actually more about your sprint endurance and your ability to repeat sprint that's more important for your performance, okay? But in order to get good sprint endurance and in order to get a good sprint repeat, we need to start with a good sprint in the first place, okay? And this is something I've come back to again and again in these videos when I talk about interval training, is that too many people are trying to do like short recovery periods because it's like racing or like the trail or whatever, but the reality is you're then learning to repeat low quality efforts, okay? So yes, before we go racing, ideally you want to do some sort of sprint repeat training with short recovery periods where you sprint, short recovery, sprint again, because that's what racing is like. That's what trail riding is like. However, if we want those sprints to be good, then it makes sense to first of all bring the level of your maximal sprinting up so that you're more powerful in the first place, so that when we repeat those efforts, they're all that little bit higher than they would have been if you've just gone straight into sprint repeat training instead. So this video is really going to focus on building that big number, you know, using something like a watt bike if you've got it available that measures your output to put down a nice, dirty, great big crank bending sprint that's going to be the envy of your mates. First thing we're going to look at then is actually what you can do off the bike in the gym, which may or may not surprise you, but the bottom line is that if you look at the best sprinters in the world, like on the track, BMX and forecross, they're all strong, powerful people in the gym, okay? Because that translates really well into being able to put more force into the pedals when you get on the bike. So this isn't just one thing, okay? It's about having a program that takes you through a series of progressions, okay? So depending on what level you're at the moment. So obviously the foundation is going to be strength, okay? Because being stronger, being able to lift more, is going to allow you to put more force into the pedals. The second part, which can run at the same time as well, depending on your level of ability, is more power-based training in the gym. For instance, jumping or doing lighter weights and trying to move it more quickly. Okay? So what we're trying to do is we want to develop more strength so we can put more force into the pedals, and then we want to develop more power, which is more about moving your body weight or more moderate loads more quickly so that we can turn the legs over quicker again when we get onto the bike. Because remember, that is the goal, is to translate your strength and power gains into the gym into increased watts on the bike. The next top tip is to enjoy your general riding to do more standing pedaling, okay? There's only so much actual sprint training you can do in a training week, especially if you're balancing work, life and family and all that good stuff. So what we're going to try and do is get extra little doses to strengthen your standing position. Now, going along with that is the fact, I think, that the modern mountain bike is so good, and with the suspension and wide range gears, that the modern mountain biker is basically always sat down on climbs these days, okay, where they used to be standing because you didn't have the gears or you didn't have the grip or suspension to make it practical to sit. I've actually made a video on this, which I'll make sure I put a link to, which is all about why I believe standing climbing can make you a better mountain biker. Now, my general approach, as you probably know by now, is about always building that foundation of strength, fitness, mobility that then enables you to build up to higher levels of performance. And this is the case here. Just by spending more time in that standing position, when you go for a trail ride, when you're doing some climbing, I really believe that it helps to build effectively a foundation of strength in that position, okay? If the only time you stand up and pedal is from max sprint, then you're going straight, you're running before you can walk basically, okay? So next time you go out riding, it's not sprinting, it doesn't have to be a massive burn, you're climbing at the same pace, but try and do more climbing in a standing position to build a foundation of strength for sprint training to come. We're out of the gym now and it's time to actually get some sprint training done out on the bike. Now, as I said, you can do it in the gym on a watt bike or something if you've got access. Most of you are probably going to be doing it outdoors on a mountain bike or road bike. First of all, a couple of things. Number one, wear a helmet. If your chain snaps when you're doing this or you slip a gear, you're going down hard, all right? So wear a helmet. Number two, nice quiet lane or fire road is the way to go here. We don't want to be mucking about with traffic, pedestrians or horses, so pick somewhere sensible to do your training. When you're actually doing the sprint training then, there's two things I see people getting wrong. They're going to make a massive difference to your results. Number one is the amount of effort you put in. You literally need to pretend you're being chased by a tiger, like you're trying to snap the cranks, okay? Whatever motivates you, you need to be aggressive and fully committed to every single sprint rep that you do. Some of you may use, the idea of winning a race and being successful like that to motivate you to really dig in and try hard. Others, maybe use something negative, something that makes you angry, okay? I think about Brexit. Whenever I think about that, I sprint really hard, so I get so enraged. Another story. Anyway, make sure that whenever you're doing sprint training that they are maximal. Anything less than maximal, and you're just getting good at being average, okay? If you really want to push your limits, it's the same principle as lifting heavy in the gym. Heavy weights elicit increased strength. Maximal sprints induce improved sprint power in you. The second thing then, which ties into the first, is rest periods. And this is something I've talked about before with interval training, where a lot of people, they take too short rests between intervals, or in this case between sprints, because they see the final event, like the race or whatever, and they're like, you do repeated sprints, which is true. But before we train the repeated sprints, before we train your sprint endurance, we need to make sure the sprint is good in the first place, and that comes here from taking long recovery periods and full recovery between sprint efforts, okay? So, if you are like a Olympic track cyclist, or even a runner like Usain Bolt, those guys, yeah, because they've got the time and the means to do that, they're doing like one sprint every half an hour or something crazy like that, which sounds mental to us. Now, I don't have time for that, and you probably don't either. But what you probably do have time for is to take 5 whole minutes between sprints. So you sprint for 5-10 seconds, something like that. Proper rest for 5 minutes, just chilling out, stay light, stay moving, maybe do a few turns, okay? Keep warm, and then go again. When we start cutting the rest lower than 5 minutes, that's when the quality of the sprint goes down, and then we're doing sub-maximal efforts, and you're not going to get more powerful. Let's talk then about your training week and your plan and how this fits in. The first thing is, if you truly want to sprint maximally, then you need to be recovered. So if you've done a real hard strength session or been out for a 4-hour ride the day before, then I'd suggest that it's not a good day to do your sprint training unless you know you are really well recovered, you're really on top of your food, your sleep, your recovery practices and so on. You need to be fresh to do sprint training to get the most out of it, otherwise it's going to be impaired. So that's the first thing. Ideally, it's great to do it after a rest stroke recovery day or just an easier day. The next thing we can think about is more about fine-tuning that sprint, okay? So, you're working in the 5 to 10 second range to develop that maximal sprint power. And I'd suggest that when you start training is that if you're on something like a watt bike, you have maybe slightly higher resistance, okay? So you've got a good bit to push against, okay? So we're really developing the force part of it. And if you're training outdoors, then that would mean doing it on, you know, a flat or maybe slightly uphill slope, where we're going to be developing, you know, good amounts of force, but maybe the leg speed isn't quite so high. If you think about the typical mountain bike race, so especially downhill and so on, then actually a lot of the sprinting might be on a downhill slope and you're already rolling, okay? So that adds a lot of extra dimensions into this, okay? As well as then the endurance aspect and the repeat aspect, but we're talking maximal here. So as you approach the race season, you can also do some downhill sprints, okay? Again, you do need to be careful on these outside because you're going to get some mad speed up and you need to be safe, but there's going to be less resistance, so less force, and potentially your leg speed is going to be higher, and you're going to need to train that, okay? And you need to train it on your downhill bike or your enduro race bike, okay? So that you're used to sprinting those bikes rather than always on the road bike or indoors. I really hope that some of that sprint training information was useful to you and that you can move forward and incorporate it into your training. A couple of things there. Number one is that if you want me to do all the hard work for you, I've got a range of training programs available right now over on the website. Make sure you check the links below, get over there, and especially check out the Complete MTB Programme, which is amazing, and I've got riders using it all across the world. And like the name suggests, it's complete. It gives you everything you need, whether you're a trail rider or a racer. The next thing I'd love you to do is, you know the score, make sure you're subscribing to my channel, like this video, share it with a friend, and if you've got any questions, make sure you leave them below, because I will always get back to you. I'll be back soon with more training knowledge, and yeah, in the meantime, I hope you get out and ride loads and that training is going well wherever you are.